Hello, it's Shari here today, and I am going to be making this card using some fun sticky products from Glue Dots. So Glue Dots sent us a whole lot of products to use, and I'm going to use a bunch of these on my card today. So different size Glue Dots in the packages here, as well as that adhesive runner. And I'm going to be using the watercolor wishes paper you see there, along with some speech bubble dies. Now some of these speech bubbles are from the A Birdie Told Me set. They match the stamps. And then these here, these long ones that are all the same height, are from the new Speech Bubbles die set that will be available February 22nd. So you can see here there's different words and pieces, but I'm just going to use the basic bubbles. So to start my card off, I'm using that stitched wood grain backdrop you see there. I've just cut a piece of white, and then I'm also going to do the same with the largest stitched frame, and that is going to be the background for my colorful speech bubbles here. So I'm just going to layer it like that, and I'm doing the frame in the same color so I have white on white, but I have a nice finished edge. So I'm going to use the permanent adhesive runner, and that is what I'm going to put all along the back, the edges, and then some through the center, and I'm going to mount this die cut stitched wood grain backdrop onto a card base. So I'm just going to get it lined up here and make sure that's nice and stuck down. Now for the frame, I'm actually using, these aren't dots in this particular one, it's like an adhesive line, like a glue line that's about an inch long. And I'm just going to be putting these in the corners. So I'm starting in a corner. I'm just going to pull that off there. So this is sort of like a thicker adhesive than the glue runner. But I don't feel like for this frame that I need glue on every inch of it, so I thought I'd give these a try. And I'm just going from the corners and kind of going in a pinwheel sort of formation. So when I go to the corner, the next one I'm going to go down the other leg of the rectangle. And then I'm actually adding a few in the center of these long pieces on the sides. I would have used the adhesive runner, but these are actually not as wide as the adhesive runner. That would have been wider than my frame. These were actually the perfect width for the frame. So I'm just going to line that up, make sure that's stuck down, and now I have my tone-on-tone textured background for my card. So I've got some scraps of my watercolor wishes 6x6 pad here, and I'm using the darker colors in the collection rather than the lighter colors. And I'm just going to die cut some of these word speech bubbles. So the ones that match A Birdie Told Me here, this pink one and the blue one I'm going to cut here in a minute, they have stamps that match, but I wanted all my speech bubbles to be consistent, and I didn't want the stamped image, so I'm not using the stamps for this particular one, just the dies. I will be doing some white embossing on these. So once I've got all my pieces taped down with my post-it note tape on the colors that I want, I'll just run those through my die cut machine. Now on that block there, I have Happy Birthday mounted on there, and those stamps come from that Happy 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 stamp set that you see there. And I'm just going to white emboss those on the blue speech bubble I've cut out here. So I'm going to stamp that with the Versamark ink, which is the clear sticky ink that's good for embossing. And then I will just spoon on some of that Lawn Fawn white embossing powder. Now I'm going to heat it up with my heat tool and melt that so I have a nice bright white sentiment on this blue speech bubble. Now I wanted to use that sixth color that I didn't cut a bubble out of, so I'm actually stamping the very small party hat from Hats Off to You, and I'm going to white heat emboss that as well. So this is on that teal color that's in the watercolor wishes, and I will just die cut that with the matching die that goes with this little hat. So all the stamping that I'm doing on this card is actually white heat embossed. and it will all match that nice white background that I made. Now, to give a little something to all the other speech bubbles that don't have a sentiment, I thought I would stamp the little heart that's part of the A Birdie Told Me stamp set and white emboss those in various places on all the other speech bubbles. This will just give some consistency to the design of my card. And I'm just going to vary where I put this little heart in all these so that it kind of bounces around the card a little bit and they're not lined up or in the same position. I did plan out where I wanted these speech bubbles a little bit ahead of time so that I knew exactly where I needed to stamp them on each one. So I'm just laying these on my card base where I want them, or close to it, and then I'm going to be using the glue dots to adhere those down. So I've got a couple sizes here. I have mini dots, I have some ultra thin dots, I have some pop-up dots which are thick and have some dimension to them, and I'm going to be using a little bit of all these in this project. For most of these speech bubbles, I'm using the ultra thin dots, which are about 3/8 of an inch circle. So these work well for these speech bubbles. And you just stick your piece to them and pick up the dot off of the adhesive backing. One thing I do like about this is I don't have all these pieces of adhesive backing all over my desk when I use the glue dots like this, as opposed to some other companies where I end up with these little pieces of clear plastic all over my desk when I'm done. So I'm using the same ones for this yellow one on the bottom. I'm just going to put one on each end and a couple in the middle, because this one's long. Now for the little purple one here, I decided I wanted to use one of those pop-up glue dots. They're about 1/2 of an inch, but they're really thick, so it kind of works like a foam adhesive, and it gives it some dimension. But I thought this little bitty one would be perfect to use those on. So I've gone ahead and I've stuck down some of my other ones. Now for the hat, I wanted the top to be stuck down, so I'm using one of the mini dots along with the ultra thin dots because they're a little smaller to stick the hat down. Now I also have some micro dots, so these are really small, and these are perfect for these sequins that you see here. So I've got some iridescent clear sequins, and I am just going to use these little micro dots to stick those down. So it's just like a tiny dot of glue almost. So to do this, I'm actually just going to lay my strip down, and I was going to pick them up with my knife there, but I found the better way to do this was to stick the sequin to it and then pick it up, and it's almost like an adhesive back sequin at that point, and then I can just put it down wherever I want it. And they're so small that that little tiny sequin is the perfect size to use these with. So now that I've got all my sequins where I want them, I thought I would finish it off with a little more sparkle. Ooh, sequins everywhere. And I'll be adding some stickles to the heart. So this is just stardust stickles, so it's kind of iridescent, a lot like the sequins. And then for the little hat there, I didn't want to introduce a coloring medium, so I pulled out some purple stickles that match the purple little speech bubble there, and I just filled in the polka dots of the hat with the purple stickles. So we use the micro dots for the sequins, we use the ultra thin dots for the speech bubbles, and the pop-up dot for that purple one so it pops up a little bit. And then I also use the glue lines for the frame, and I use the tape runner for the background. Here's a close-up of the card. So it's a nice, simple, but bright and happy card. Thanks for watching. Have an amazing day. Bye!